The night was fast ebbing away, and I, sleepless, lay awake, reminiscing about a certain lady whom I had come across the 908 Nehati Bajwaj local. It had been a bleak February night, and the usual crowd that otherwise hummed across the platforms all through the evening had now grown sparse. In my compartment, she was my sole co-passenger. Soon enough, the train chugged out of the Nehati station and began to gather speed. My inmate, a vegetable vendor by profession, as two large sacks full of curry leaves near her feet bore witness to, collected the folds of the cheap silk sari around herself and found a comfortable seat towards the back. In a little while, she summoned a small purse from within her green blouse and, opening it, produced a range of makeup materials which she arranged neatly on the seat beside her own. Outside, stations passed by as if in a shallow moving dream. My co-traveler pursued her makeup with an arduous and somewhat fierce zest. She patted some powder on her face, some magical thing that transformed her complexion from wheatish to ivory. She scrubbed some more of it around her neck and then proceeded towards the eyes. This laborious task took a considerable time and concentration, and as the train squeaked and lurched forth, bouncing and jogging over the tracks, she found it ever more difficult to keep her hands steady. The feat being finally achieved, she held her cell phone in front of her face like a mirror and scrutinized the reflection with furrowed brows. Thus she went on, wandering from eyes to lips, while I kept snatching a glance or two at her every now and then. My manners stopped me from indulging in a direct stare, and yet I believed, even if I did, the lady would have hardly noticed, so engrossed was she in her handiwork. I wondered, for whom was she decking herself up so? Perhaps there was a lover to meet, someone waiting for her in the dark shades of the night. Perhaps a friend or some wedding that needed to be attended to. And perhaps, just perhaps, she was a vegetable vendor by day and a seductress at night, luring and beckoning lustful souls that hid around the corner of the redder streets of the city. Whatever it was, her act somehow transfixed me and made me weave stories of purple lights and silver smokes, of jasmine and old songs on gramophone records, all in my head. I could almost hear a quakering voice gliding out of that imagined disc. I could smell the attar hanging in the air. I looked out of the window and past the dimming lights and knew that it was time for me to leave. As I stood up, the enchantress did the same. Her labors were finished, and she now looked like some sort of a fish struggling to be caught. She suddenly stooped towards the sacks near her feet, untied the knots, and became very busy with a spread of green curry leaves, separating the fresh bunches from the darker and withered ones. The train slowed down to a halt. Just before getting off, I took a last sweeping look at her, and she was engaged still, with masses of green all around her form. The last thing I remembered was the maddening smell of curry leaves that severed the air above me and clung to my head like a beautiful spell that had lost its charm.